Hey there, Pod Pals. Do you feel like you could use a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or with converting your podcast listeners into becoming your best clients? I want you to head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and watch the 4-minute video that talks about who I help and exactly how I can help them out. Next, I want you to click on the Discovery Call button to set up a free podcast profit potential discovery call where we can talk about working together to help you reach your podcasting and online business goals. Head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for your free podcast profit potential discovery call. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. If you're an online coach, consultant, or service provider, and you're looking to learn how to leverage your podcast to get more clients and build your online business, then you're in the right spot. We got a podcast audit coaching session happening here. My new pod pal, Ken, from the Curated Questions podcast. Ken, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. It is great to be here and appreciate all the work you're putting out into the world.
Yeah. So let's start off with my big 6-month question to set a kind of a direction that we want to operate in here today. So let's say that we do our session today. I deliver, and you've got many nuggets of knowledge to implement. You go out, you crush it for 6 months. Things are going great. We follow up. We're talking today. Like, what would that look like 6 months from today if everything goes really, really well between now and
then? Right now, my primary push for 2025 is about growth. 2024 was about getting my systems in place and my processes in place. Now I'm ready to really implement that and focus on the growth. So what I would say is that as of today, looking at just before the show here, I've been doing this really for a year, and I've had 1,444 downloads. So independent podcast. So that's where I'm at. And so if I'm getting, 6 months from now, if I'm getting like maybe 500 downloads per episode, and kind of putting that out there as a swag for a goal in 6 months, that to me would be a good marker for progress towards growth.
Great. Very doable. We can definitely do that. I know you said you've listened to some episodes of the show. You're already implementing a little bit. So you're hitting the ground running, which I like and I appreciate. With growth, we need to look at the 3 buckets. So we got organic discoverability, we've got effort-based marketing, and we got paid marketing. So that's kind of the 3 buckets that we can investigate today. Do you feel like there's anything in particular that's really a major stumbling point or roadblock for your growth right now? Or are you just feeling like you're just kind of still, the guy that's 1 year into podcasting and figuring things out?
Roadblocks, not necessarily. What I would say is, or where I see this as, is that yes, it's getting the word out. And because I'm doing something a little bit different, it's not just a copy paste of I'm doing Joe Rogan copy paste with my name. And so I'm working on Seth Godin's strategy thing right now, really trying to nail down my strategy for growth, but also the impact that I'm really seeking to accomplish in the world. So that'll hopefully kind of come out in the next month or 2, as well as I'm doing that work. By way of introduction real quick. So Curated Questions, what I'm focused on is having conversations to celebrate the power of questions. So it's kind of flipping it, the meta skill of asking questions. Whereas on all these other podcasts, it's let me ask you questions about your experience. This is that meta skill about actually asking questions and how people use it in their personal and professional lives. So that's the story that I'm sharing. Most folks are not like, let me go through iTunes or, Apple Podcast and look for how to ask better questions. That's generally not a search that I'm aware of that is happening. So I'm trying to create that ecosystem.
Okay. That helped a lot. I got a big hot idea for you, but first,
Sweet.
Here, let's read an ad. Just kidding.
Yes.
Everybody knows I don't do mid-roll ads. I don't read ads. Okay. So I want to know what you said you had added a title extension. So what words did you use? What does that look like?
Conversations celebrating the power of questions. Before I just had curated questions, and then I added that in the last week. and
Okay.
also added a much longer description. So which with hopefully more searchable words or that would pop up in any search.
Okay. With your ideal listener avatar, it's people that want to get better at the skill of asking questions. But who are you targeting out of those people? Like who is that sounds like some of the work you're doing already, but like
Mhm.
who's coming to mind as like these groups specifically I really want to lean into?
Uh, I I would think that who would find the most benefit at the jump or the easy one would be like either coaches or salespeople. It'd probably be, like I say, the short putt for who's using questions already strategically.
Okay. So I think coaches, consultants, salespeople, I think podcasters needs to be a
Mhm.
demographic. This is what we do.
Yep.
And I think the big keyword for you is actually public speaking. That is a really strong keyword.
Okay.
And public speaking takes so many different forms. Podcasting is public speaking. It doesn't have to be a TED talk to be public speaking. I don't have to be standing on a stage to be public speaking. I just had a guest on, Lorianne Mirabito, that we talked about this. Like all these different stages exist, and the art of even if I am doing a TED talk, a well curated question to the audience is really powerful.
Mm, absolutely.
So I think that could really be and that is a great keyword. I'm telling you, Lorianne, great example. Lorianne, she has a show called Be in Demand, and it's a show about public speaking and getting on stages and things like that. And we added public speaking in her title extension. I think she said her download 7-day record got beat by like 400% in the next 7 days or something like that, just by adding public speaking. So
Wow.
I think if that's relevant, and I believe that it is, I would look to add that to the title line potentially, the extension line. And the nice thing about a title extension is that you can change that often and experiment with it, and nobody even notices. I change mine about once a quarter. I never tell anybody. I don't make a big to do of it.
Yep.
It's not a big deal. So I think that could be powerful. And from a monetization strategy, and from you being a guest on other people's podcast strategy, I like it, man. Like I like you going, hey, podcasters, hey, coaches, hey, sales and marketer people, um, public speakers, stage speakers. Let me teach you the art and the power of a well curated question, or adding well curated questions to your TEDx talk, to your podcast interviews.
Mm,
Like I could see you running a little 14-day paid boot camp challenge thing for podcasters to elevate their ability to curate questions, or people that are speaking on stage, like things like that. I see monetization opportunities happening, that aren't, you having to go look for sponsors and things like that, which I like. So that's just kind of some side ideas, but I would really look at, even if you don't put it in the title line, you got to get public speaking, public speakers, stage speakers, live event speakers, podcasters, podcast guests. These are all keywords that I would have in your host description for
okay.
sure. I would be doing episodes about this as well. Like, the power of a curated question added to your TEDx talk, the power of curated questions for podcast guests. And think about that. Like,
Mm,
as a podcast guest, I could have a powerful curated question ready to ask the person asking me the question. Like that's a topic that's not talked about at all. And
love that.
I see you in this silo, in this niche, just being the guy that owns it. Because I don't know, I've been in this space this is my 10th year. I've never heard anybody talk about that before. So that's, and it's exactly what you want the show to be about. We're not like bending the rules and going, well, no, we're actually going to talk about this other thing. Like,
Right.
this is just your topic well applied to a few audiences that really need to hear it. I see you doing coaching episodes like this, inviting, like you could go on a platform like Threads and go, hey, podcasters, or hey, new podcasters, hashtag podcasters or something like that, to kind of pull in the right audience. Go, who wants to get better at he wants to level up their interviewing skills. I have a podcast called Curated Questions. I'm pulling podcasters on this month to do a 15-minute curated question assessment, audit, strategy session, whatever you want to call it, and create episodes like this, like what we're doing here today. Cool content, you know, brainstorming, jamming ideas. Maybe you help them come up with really good questions for like a lightning round at the end of their show, or, you know, 3 questions that they should be wanting to ask every guest, or maybe they've got like some giant guest and you're like, all right, let me help you figure out the question
Right.
that you should ask that person that they've probably never been asked before. Stuff like that. Podcasters will eat that up, man. Like they're, especially new podcasters, they'll freaking love that. So I'll pump my brakes. Any thoughts? I just brain dumped on you for 10 minutes there.
So love that. And appreciate the brainstorming, because one of the things that I've in this strategy kind of struggling through has been how do I kind of riff on this? Right. So I've had some amazing guests on, and it's been great. I just did a wrap up episode for the first one for 25, kind of, you know, doing a wave top review of the previous guests, or the last year anyway. And all of that was cool. But yes, I had been considering trying to figure out other ways, because you're had made the statement before that if I'm going to be an expert in an area, then I need to have 2/3 of my content. Hopefully this is sounding familiar.
Yes. I love it.
2/3 of my content coming back that's just me. And that was why on this year-end wrap-up that I did, my natural inclination was to actually go and grab clips from all of those episodes and put that in there. But because of your comment, I wanted the audience to hear my voice for an entire episode as a way to, yes, I am the expert in trying and putting myself in that position. So some of these ideas that you're just kicking out here really, you know, ratchet that up as, yes, I'm the expert. If you're talking about questions, Ken Woodward needs to be in the conversation, curated questions. This is the place to go. So yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Love it.
Okay. More ideas. So now that I know that you are open to the idea of solo episodes, coaching style episodes, I mean, I think you could do really well. Let's say that you decide, hey, I want to attempt, maybe if it's just a free thing. Maybe the first time you do this, you're like, hey, I'm just gonna do this for free, see what the reaction is. And you're like, I'm going to do a 45-minute like workshop webinar, Zoom, like a Zoom thing. Like I do like one a month at the end of the month, and it's a free thing. It builds my email list, and that's a good thing. And eventually you could charge for it. But let's say we're going to do a one-off little one-day workshop thing. That's 45 to 90 minutes. And you are like, okay, I'm going to help one of your target avatars. So podcasters or public speakers, probably the 2 big ones there that I think would be really easy to find people for this. And you put out some stuff on social media, email, on the show. Hey, on this date, I'm going to be doing a curated questions workshop specifically for podcasters. We're working on leveling up your interview questions. And I'm going to teach for about 30 minutes, and then I'm going to do some live coaching and pull people in and just kind of like do that, see how the reaction is. But then if you have a good reaction, I would say, all right, maybe the next month you do a 3-day paid workshop and you just let 8 or 10 people in and say, hey, this is going to be $250 to $500 per person. And we are going to spend time over the next 3 days, 10 days, 14 days, whatever, and doing a specific thing. So maybe you're going to help them map out their interview questions for their next 5 interviews or something like that, or something very specific. And you take them along that journey, they pay you, and you have monetized. And you can repeat this because you're doing small batch groups. And as your audience grows, we get more small batch groups kind of in the hopper ready to go. So I would look at something like that. I think with your episodes, with your solo episodes, I think you could really do well with the audience question clip technique that I've used a few times in my show, where you could say, all right, here's our question of the week. Speaking of curated questions, here's our question from our audience member of the week. And it's like, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm a public speaker or I'm a podcaster and blah, blah, blah. They fire a question at you, or maybe they have a question that they ask that they want refinement on, or maybe they've like, hey, I've got this person that's coming on my show. I would love to know what types of questions you would ask them or how I can level up my questioning strategy for that specific person. Or I'm getting ready to go speak on stage or whatever, or I'm a coach or I'm a consultant and I'm not good at sales. So you can have these whole content pillars for all these different avatars. And I think it's going to serve everybody really nicely. But I like, I'm sure you have plenty of solo episodes that you could do just off the top of mind, but you could also sprinkle in some like audience questions where they do the audio clip. And I think that would be pretty cool as well.
Love that. Yeah.
So that should help you fill your 2/3. And then, your other third with doing interviews. Obviously you've been doing that. You got experience with that, and that's easy. And the nice thing about whether you do an audience, a coaching session, like what we're doing, an audience audio clip submission, or a solo episode, they're so much easier, Ken. I mean, it's so much easier for me to do this or to do a solo episode than it is to do a long form interview, like with the prep and the post-production and all the stuff and social media stuff. Like this is super easy, low prep, in our zone of genius, creating cool content that our audience wants. Like I know this conversation is going to be valuable to my audience because you are a member of my audience and you're asking questions that are relevant to you, and you are again a member of my audience. So I know that that's going to resonate with somebody else. But sometimes people, especially with solo episodes, they kind of talk about what they as the host think is cool, and they don't necessarily talk about what their audience actually wants to hear. So if you're worried about that, then coaching episodes and Q&A audio clip episodes kind of guarantee you're talking about what your audience actually wants to hear from you. That makes sense?
It does.
Okay. So let's get back to growth now. I think we got some ideas with content, even monetization. Like that just poured out of me. I'm not even sure where that came from. It was all that snow shoveling I did earlier. I think it got the juices.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be sending snow showers your way before we talk then.
No!
All right.
Worst ever. So yeah, that something worked today. So let's talk growth now. But I think if you can add public speaking, podcasters. So let's say that title extension, it could become strategies for podcasters, public speakers. I would like the word public speaking if we get in. Maybe it's like public speaker or public speakers is okay, but public speaking is probably what people are going to search on Apple or Spotify. If we can get that word in that extension, that would be great. But it could be strategies for podcasters, public speakers, and coaches, consultants, or something like that. And then I know podcasters and podcasting, those are big time search words because I leverage them myself. And then public speaking and public speaker is going to be just the atomic keyword bomb for you. That's going to pull in all the avatars because I'm a public speaker, I'm a podcaster, I'm a coaching consultant. It's kind of all wrapped into one. So if you have those different words in there, people like me are going to show up, and I feel like I represent your ideal avatar pretty well.
Okay.
So I think that will take care of your organic discoverability. Obviously, all these keywords need to be in your host description, the about this podcast. All of them need to be in there.
Yep.
Episode titles. You got to start cranking out some solo episodes. 3 ways podcasters can elevate their interviews with curated questions. 4 strategies for public speakers to use curated questions on a TEDx stage. Like something like those are titles of your episodes. We need to use those keywords in there.
A question for you.
Yes.
Point of clarification. So in your examples that you just used, you continually used curated questions. Should I do that? Or because at this point, somebody reading it, if I didn't have curated in there and if I just had questions, right, people would understand what that meant. But by dropping curated questions in there, I'm getting kind of the marketing bang as well. Should I do that? Or should I just plan on, okay, done, moving out? This is a part of the process.
I like having curated questions in there because it's going to help you own the niche because you're the curated questions show. You're the curated questions guy. Yeah, I honestly would use it often because it's not going to give or take away from SEO. I think it's going to give to brand recognition, which is going to help because all the SEO will be in the for podcasters, for public speakers, for TEDx speakers. Like that's where the SEO is going to come from. And I think people understand that it's questions, but it's like almost like your own specific flavor of question, and people are going to get curious about that and go, "Ooh, it sounds like some special type of a question that I should be asking," and that's what you're going to help them do. So I like that.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, yeah,
Since I interrupted you, let me ask you one more question.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
regarding the rhythm. So right now, I'm every 2 weeks publishing an interview, with the exception of the wrap up one. And so, what is your thought on periodicity? Obviously, consistency is key. I get that, but these interviews have gone generally an hour to an hour and a half. So if I start doing 20-minute interviews like we're talking in some of these that we've talked through, does that hinder anything? Have I already set up an expectation with the audience? What are your thoughts?
Great question. Naturally, this is a predicament that almost all podcasters stress out over, myself included, and we get locked into that pattern, and we're afraid to shake the pattern tree a little bit because we're afraid it'll spook away our listeners. It'll be like, ooh, different pattern. What's he doing? I don't like this. I'm out. Unsubscribe. So we don't want that. But the good news is we don't need to worry about that because so I was in the pattern of 1 week I do a solo episode and a podcast audit. The next week I do an interview and a podcast audit. And it always felt like I had to keep that pattern for some strange reason. And then I realized the interviews I was doing, I was just filling that space. It wasn't like I really, really, really wanted to interview that person. I just felt like I have to fill an interview slot because that is my pattern, and it wasn't optimal content. And that's what really woke me up. I was like, listen, they just want the episode. They want something they can take away and go do something and get better at building their business or podcasting. So that's when I kind of got rid of that idea. So I think you could do the same thing. And I think your audience is really going to like the solos. I would love to see a weekly cadence. And I think with shorter episodes, that's going to be very doable. You'll probably spend less time overall and be able to get out weekly content just with the prep, just with I'd love to see a 10 or 15 minute quick tips episode from you, once a month, maybe an episode like this once a month, a couple of interviews or you could fill in the gaps pretty easily. Even if you just did one interview a month and did a solo episode, did a listener question and a coaching, that could be your 4 episodes rotation, adding an interview in there. And those other 3 can be done the same time as it would for one interview. So,
okay.
I would look at that.
Okay. Beautiful. And one other element that I've got on the show that I've incorporated is this concept of the right now question. So this is something that not where you're going to eat for lunch and, who are you going to marry, but it's the question for guests. Where this is going though is, what is your right now question? What is the question that's on your head that you're living with? Right. So what I've also done this once and plan to do more is street interviews for those, specifically that question. Right. So now I can kind of stack a bunch of those, and then those will also work for social as well.
Yeah.
But several of and I was thinking on my next episode here would be a compilation and pulling in a few other things and really anchoring in on that right now right now questions. So now social media wise or out there in the world, it's curated questions and right now questions that I own those 2 things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like also those right now questions. Those could be audio clip submissions, like that could be, your intro and outro. Hey, podcast listeners, today we're going to be talking about this, and this. Don't forget, go to the link in the show notes. You could submit your right now question. I've got instructions on how exactly, give them a template. Like I always, whenever I ask for audio submission, I'm like, I need it to be 60 to 90 seconds. I have a word template in there, like a fill in the blank to get you going type of a thing. So it's not a rambling thing. And I think that
I love that.
That way it doesn't have to be man on the street. It can be podcaster in his pajamas, collecting right now questions and doing it instead of, and you can still do the man on the street thing too. Like that's, but you can help build that brand recognition and kind of build that legend a little bit. Like if we can just educate our listeners, like when I first started doing podcast audits, I had to go and chase people down. And it was like really, really hard to get people to show up and do this because they didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Then once I had like 50 of them in my RSS feed and people had listened to them and I advertised on the show, hey, if you want to do this, go here and go to my website and go get the thing. And now, I mean, I'm booked out usually for 6 to 8 weeks at a time and I never have to chase anybody down. But so the same thing could be happening for you with this, the right now questions, with any sort of question or coaching type of episode. I think that, you just kind of get it up and get it going. It's a little bit of a heavy lift at start, but then the flywheel starts to turn and you've got content coming out of your ears all of a sudden.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So I feel like all that stuff sounds good to me, Ken. Like I feel like that's really good content wise. Again, I think if you can find a way, I know it's a big ask to get to that weekly cadence, it's really going to help. I think your audience is going to respond to that. It's going to help with just inserting your content into the regular listening weekly routine of your ideal listener avatar. So I think that'll be a strong move. And then what are you doing now? Like an episode goes live, time to promote it. What are we doing? How are we telling people about your episodes?
So what I'll generally do is with the episode drop, so put it on the website. So that's the home of it, if you will, right? But then I publish it through Simplecast. So that's my home there for owning that. Obviously, it goes out to all the distribution. Got that. I'll take a recast clip of the audio with the art, right? All of that comes together. That comes out on publication, or the date that I dropped the episode. Boom. That goes to Instagram, Threads, Facebook, YouTube, and now Blue Sky, spreading it across, in LinkedIn, spreading it across there. Then obviously tag whoever, right? So you get a little bit of extra bump there. So that happens. And then since it's 2 weeks between episodes, I'll generally like 3 days after that, because since that's a still with the audio, it doesn't have the video to it. Then I would do a video clip on like 3 days afterwards, and then like 7 days after that or whatever. So so at least social media wise, there's something dropping. And in some cases, I've taken the video clip and put, using Descript anyway, put in other little video pieces, kind of like a video montage anyway, that fades back and forth between whoever is talking anyway. So that's the structure right now. I've used Instagram, or I've paid Instagram ads at this point. I've done a Google promotion one time for a Nikki Giovanni just after she passed. But put this out, and for the sake of humanity, I think everybody ought to see Nikki Giovanni smile. So put all that out there. That's been the extent of it. So then now I'm looking at figuring out new ways. And so I haven't done any promotion on any podcast, Apple or anything like. I haven't done any of that. I think that now is that shift, and this is part of what I'm going to do in 2025.
Yeah. Well, I think just two quick ideas here. I've got another framework, the 72-hour marketing window, and this will be a little bit more work now that you're going to be doing weekly episodes, but I think if you're smart about it, you can repurpose a lot. And it sounds like you're already using like Descript and some different tools, so that's good. But I like, new episode goes out within 72 hours. I like to have 5 unique marketing assets go out in different ways. So that's not, so what that wouldn't be one clip on 5 platforms. That would be 5 clips, 5 different clips, or 5, and it can be a mix. So
yeah,
It seems like for you, platform focus wise, natural platforms, I think you could do really well on with your avatar would be LinkedIn and Threads, for like public speakers, podcasters, things like that. Like I could see you going on LinkedIn, honestly, going, hey, I've got a show called Curated Questions. I'm looking to invite podcasters or public speakers or coaches or, any of your avatar. I'd focus on one at a time. I want to bring them on the show for a blah, blah, blah audit session. And we're going to do 20 minutes where I help you figure out whatever it is that you're going to help them figure out with their curated questions. So I think you just have a huge influx of people like me, and then have the email opt-in for them to sign in and apply and all that stuff. So I think you could do really well with that. But as far as the 5 assets go, these could be, Threads posts. These could be live streams. These could be video clips. These can be a newsletter, like email list wise. If you email your email list and promote your episode in some way, shape, or form, that's a promotional asset as well. So, and that's something you can build up to. So maybe as you go to the weekly cadence and then go, I'm going to promote each episode 3 unique assets and build up to 5 if it makes sense. I think the weekly cadence is the primary important thing. And then building up promotional assets on top of those, maybe start with 2 or 3 each episode, build up to 5 if you can get there. And I think those are the kind of the next 2 steps with just having that marketing structure. And hopefully, like I'm one of those guys, I'm not telling my listeners to go out and be everywhere. I'm just like, experiment everywhere, and then find the 1 to 2 that you're like, my time is so well served on this social media platform. So right now for me, that's Threads. Like I've got 100 new followers in the last 24 hours on Threads. Like it's just really smoking hot right now. And I put out content. It takes me 30 seconds to put up a post, and I get followers and I get listeners and I get customers. So I'm like, I love this. So I spend a lot of time on that. And Instagram is connected to Threads, so I kind of make them work together. But Instagram is now secondary. So for you, is that LinkedIn and Threads, or LinkedIn and Instagram, or LinkedIn and something else, Facebook, So I would make that one of your goals of this year, is to experiment everywhere and find the 1 or 2 that you really like. You put like 90% into the 1 or 2, and the 10% of repurposing, we can do that as well. So I would challenge you on that, because that'll make your time a lot more effective. Because it's just like, I could try to be everywhere, but that's going to, maybe that takes an extra hour. Maybe that takes an extra hour and a half or 2 hours each week being everywhere. Or I could put that extra time into Threads and get 100 new followers, listeners, clients. I'm like, this is a no-brainer for me. So you have to avoid the fear of missing out a little bit there, which is hard being in the content creator space. The other thing I would have you take a peek at is, if you're ready to do ads, if you're already doing Instagram ads, I would look at Overcast FM ads. So it's overcast.fm/ads. That is a podcast player app platform that will allow you to run banner ads while people are listening to podcast episodes. So you can run a banner ad. It's super simple. It's way cheaper than Facebook and Instagram ads. And you are directly marketing your show with a banner, advertising your show in a category that you get to pick. So education, business, comedy, news, whatever. You pick the category. It runs in that category for 30 days. Probably going to spend $200, $250, $300. And they have a prediction of how many new listeners, like subscribers, you'll get. And they track that. They track subscribers. Now, here's the thing. I want you to aim for a cost per acquisition of $7 or less. So if you're like, okay, I'm paying X amount, and they say I'm going to get however many subscribers, I want you paying $7 or less per subscriber that you're predicted to get. If it's over that price, wait, and the price will come down, because it's dynamic pricing. And I'm hoping to have, I think his name is Mario, on the show. That he's the guy that owns Overcast FM. I want to have him on the show to kind of explain the platforms I talk about all the time. I really need to set up an affiliate link, because every time I mention it on the show, all the ad prices go up. I'm like, yep, a bunch of people just went and bought ads again. So anyway, so that go and do that before the ad prices go up again. But check that out, and you'll get better results. And you're actually, the thing I like about it, as opposed, I do Instagram and Facebook ads as well. but I like podcast player apps better because I'm advertising to someone actively listening to a podcast right then and there. And I don't have to ask them to jump off a platform and onto a different one and hit subscribe. So yeah, I think those two little marketing action steps, in addition to our organic discovery steps that we mentioned earlier, I think we got the recipe, man. I think 2025 is going to be your year, Ken.
Sweet. Yeah.
The year of Ken.
Yeah. I'm absolutely ready for this to go and really to make the impact for folks and for folks to fall in love with questions the way that I love them, just because they've had such an amazing impact on my life. And being able to ask the right question of guests where it's a common thing for them to go, wow, nobody's ever asked me that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, to really get them to do that deep pause. It's like, yes, because that's a gift to the guest, right? And I want it to be a remarkable experience. That's because, like, I'll say this. I actually open before we start recording. I asked all of my guests, I tell them that this is coming, but I ask them, what would make this time remarkable? Right? Because I want to set the tone. I want my guest to feel, I want my guest to walk away and go, that was the best experience that I've ever had on any podcast, hands down, period.
Yes.
And so framing things like that, and that's with the gift of questions, right?
Yeah.
That's, I'm like, this can happen. So I want to share the love.
Okay. So final idea, because you just sparked it.
Yep.
I think I want you to lean in. When you are talking to podcasters, one of podcasters' favorite things ever is to hear people say what you just said. I've never been asked that question before. That's the best question I've ever been asked, or that's the best interview I've ever had. Like, that should be your paid offer, your free challenge, like, for podcasters, how to get the response. I've never been asked that question before. Like, curating the I've never been asked that question before question for your podcast guest. I think that's attractive because that is a carrot that you can dangle in front of people like me, and we're all over it. So use that against people like me.
Excellent.
Yes. All right, Ken, I want to give you an opportunity to shout out your website, social media, and your podcast. Go ahead and take the mic and promote away.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all of your help here. So Ken Woodward, Curated Questions. So we are all about celebrating the power of questions, as we've just been talking through, and wanting to impact whomever is using questions and be able to amplify or kind of develop that curiosity. How else might these be used? What things am I leaving on the table with engaging with my kids, my partner? In this case, as we're talking, whether it's speaking, being able to engage with the audience, or podcasters really engaging with that guest to make it an absolutely remarkable experience. I think that questions, it's worked for me. Questions can absolutely be a major lever to making a difference in the lives of yourself and the lives of others. So I'm on the socials, website, Curated Questions, ton of questions out there from all over the place. And on all the socials, Curated Questions. Love to have you become a part of the party. And please reach out. If this sparked any ideas like Adam came up with, let me know. Standing by.
I'm going to send you on the road wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I've got lots of ideas for Ken. We're going to talk about it off camera. Appreciate you guys. See you on the next episode. If you need a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or monetization strategy, head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for a free podcast profit potential discovery call. During this free 20-minute discovery call session, I'm going to analyze your podcasting brand and tell you where I think you're missing on an opportunity for profits. Next, I'm going to tell you exactly what I suggest that you do as your next step. If I've got an offer that would help you accelerate the process, we can discuss working together as well. So head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on the Discovery Call button to schedule your free Podcast Profit Potential Discovery Call.